George Shearing was the composer who wrote such well-known old tunes as Lullaby of Birdland. Blind from birth, he led an extremely productive life. Once, in his latter years, an admirer asked him, "Have you really been blind your entire life?" George quickly replied, "Not yet." One day, he was standing on a very busy street corner during rush hour, waiting for some good Samaritan to come by and help him across the street. Another blind man came, tapped him on the shoulder, and asked, "Can you lead me across the street?" George said later, "What could I do? I led him right across the street, and it was the biggest thrill of my life." A man born blind cannot see some of the things we see, but it is possible that he actually sees better than we do. We hear of such a man cured by Jesus. As always, Jesus did this on a day when it was forbidden to do it. He always loved to break rules, and he broke every rule possible. Of course, the religious leaders of his day condemned him for that, asking how this could be a man of God if he breaks all the taboos. Jesus could see, and he saw clearly that God doesn't care about laws. God cares about people. Jesus could see that. The religious leaders could not. This story is much more about the incurable blindness of the Pharisees than about the very curable blindness of the man born blind. The difference between the two was that the blind man could see that he could not see, whereas the Pharisees believed they were seeing and they were not. Unfortunately, not all the Pharisees died 2,000 years ago. There still are plenty, most especially in the religious professions, who place taboos and rules above God's love. Time after time, Jesus shows that God cares more about people than about rules, taboos, laws, or social customs. He shows that Oscar Wilde was not far from the truth when he penned the famous line, "I like persons better than principles, and I like persons with no principles better than anything else in the world." Time after time, we see politicians putting partisan politics ahead of the common good. They would rather let the human race perish or the planet be destroyed than swallow their pride and talk with those on the other side. Do we sometimes put artificial taboos before our concern for people? I have seen some horror stories. I knew one old priest back home who grew up in the Episcopalian faith. His father and grandfather were Anglican priests. He was also ordained an Anglican priest, but then decided to become a Catholic. This was taboo, like curing on the Sabbath. His father never spoke to him again. I have seen parents who would have nothing more to do with a child who married someone from a different religion or a different race. Taboo. I have seen parents disown their children because they didn't approve of their lifestyle or their choice of a life partner. I have seen brothers and sisters not speaking for years for some long-forgotten reason. I have seen a daughter become a born-again Christian and condemn her parents for remaining just ordinary Lutherans. All these taboos, all these broken relationships, all this blindness. Who are the blind of the world? Jesus tells us, I have come into this world to make the blind see and to make the seeing blind. Or as one very wise old priest translated it, I have come into this world to show all those who always had to have the last word, to show all those who were seeing all, to show all those who were only speaking but never listening, that they are the blind and deaf ones. And I have come into this world to give sight to those who see that they do not see, and after they see, do not shrink from what they see. I have come into this world to give hearing to those who listen rather than just always talk, and then do not shrink from what they hear. During this season of looking into our souls to see what is worth preserving and what is worth resurrecting, let us resurrect the gift of seeing that we do not see, the gift of the humility it takes not only to speak, but to listen and learn, the gift of placing people above taboos, the gift of opening our eyes at the touch of God.